What's good, y'all? It's your boy Mixtape Moth. If you're rocking with this content, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, as that is greatly appreciated. But y'all know what time it is. The best hip-hop albums of 2023 so far. So the general consensus that I've seen in my own comment section and from others' posts on social media in the past few months is that it has been a slow first half of the year as far as releases go. And you know what? I completely agree. There's been some mid projects, albums that are technically good but lack replay value, and some not so interesting drop, especially when compared to last year, and then I'd have to say the year before, and probably the year before that too. But hey, there were still some good ones that dropped. I'm gonna hit y'all quickly with 15 that caught my attention, and you know, ones that had enough replay value. Starting at number 15, Skyzoo's The Mind of a Saint. So this was a very creative and conceptual project where Skyzoo was rapping from the perspective of Franklin Saint, a snowfall. Conceptually, thematically, it was well thought out. The lyrics were cinematic and even poetic. But I'd have to say, I found the production to just be okay. Like, it was a good project, but I would just personally, I would like to hear Skyzoo rap over slightly different production next release. At number 14, I have Conway the Machine presents Drumwork, the album. Yes, I know, Mixtape Moth, this project just dropped, but I have been playing it quite a bit, and I think it's one of the stronger label compilations that I've heard in a while. While the production may have been just serviceable at times, I thought the artists definitely made up for it with their hungry, urgent bars and energetic flows. I mean, it really showed Love the Genius, Skeese, and Lucky 7 as the stars of the label, or the ones with the most potential outside of the machine, that is. For number 13, I have Dawn Trip, Die Another Day. So this was one of 6 solo projects from the Memphis rapper Dawn Trip that have dropped so far this year, and I'd say that he is probably the most underrated Southern lyricist at the moment, and he's having a crazy run, kind of like Boldy James did last year. But Die Another Day has some moody bangers and melancholy introspective records, and pretty much on every song you're gonna find some quotable. At number 12, I have Curren and JD for Motivational Use Only, Volume 1. Now, this was one of 2 releases from Curren so far. He had just put out Vices with Harry Fraud, which is very solid. But I'd have to say for Motivational Use was my favorite. This time around, Spitta linked with the Atlanta producer legend JD for this 7-track EP. And there are some fun, flavorful bangers here. One song even directly samples from a New Orleans bounce classic. So yeah, it was good to hear JD back outside producing again, and Curren sounding refreshed over these crisp and soulful beats. It was a New Orleans to Atlanta thing. Number 11, I have Conway's Won't He Do It. So this project might have been one of Conway's most polarizing yet. I can recall many people in the comment section of my review, as well as tweets on social media, suggesting that it was a mid album for Conway standard. And while it's not a perfect project, there are some high highs which resulted in strong enough replay value for me. Yeah, some felt the production was too experimental, but for my ears, there was enough variety to keep things fairly interesting. For number 10, I have Lloyd Banks' COTI 3. So this was the 3rd installment to the COTI series from the Punchline King. But throughout this series, Banks has really displayed his depth as an artist. On COTI 3, we got some of his most personal and reflective writing of the series, and production-wise, it might be his most cohesive and consistent. Yeah, it's a bit bleak at times, but Cartoon Beats really did deliver with his contribution. For number 9, I have Rome Streetz and Big Ghost, Built in a Day. This Rome Streetz and Big Ghost project dropped at the very beginning of the year. Consequently, it went way under the radar for some. But Rome was bodying these Big Ghost instrumentals and demonstrated his sharp lyrical acumen the whole way through. And I felt it also contained some of Big Ghost's better beats in the last year or so. For number 8, I have Boldy James, Prisoner of Circumstances. This was Boldy's second drop of the year after successfully recovering from that horrible car accident. It's a 7-track EP produced entirely by Chan Hayes, who I was unfamiliar with prior. But listen, if you like heavy soul sample and sample based production in general, you will mess with these instrumentals because every song has some sort of soul production that is attractive and smooth, and Boldy came with his detailed street rap as expected. For number 7, I have Larry June and the Alchemist's The Great Escape. Okay, so this is some people's album of the year. I've seen it in the comment sections. And while personally I don't have this album that high on my list, I still think it's a strong project that was a slight change in pace stylistically for Larry June. It just felt like Larry June was stepping into the Alchemist's world more so on this release. Now, of course, there are some gorgeous, suave, hazy, and soulful sounds that display why Alchemist is such a genius. That being said, I did find the project to be a bit low energy at times. But there are some really beautiful vibe-heavy tracks and even a couple singles that are my favorite so far. At number 6, I have Billy Wood's Maps. Okay, so last year was my first time listening to a Billy Woods album. But what I really liked about this project with Kenny Siegel was the jazz-heavy production throughout. I'd say it was one of the better jazz rap albums I've heard recently. And of course, Billy delivered with those clever, unique, and obscure references. Thematically, you know, this project was well crafted and instrumentally even breezy and kind of fun at times. For number 5, I have Key Glock Glaucoma 2, and I would include the deluxe version to this. So this is a dope Memphis trap album from one of Young Dolph's artists and the current star of Paper Route's label. On this album, Key Glock, he's flexing his lyrical wit and his swag on tracks. There are a lot of bangers that are well produced and some wavy songs that will have you feeling like you're in your bag. At the end of the day, it is a project that grew on me considerably since it dropped, and it's good to see Glock putting on for his hometown and making Dolph proud. At number 4, I have Oddisee's To What End. All right, so I didn't even get to review this for my channel officially because I caught onto it super late. But I gotta admit, this was my first time listening to Oddisee in life. But to my surprise, it ended up being one of my favorite drops so far this year. Not only did I find lyrics to be sharp and thoughtful and mature, but I found the production to be stellar. Like, there was a live band sound at times, but it was still punchy enough to not be watered down. Yeah, as a whole, I thought the instrumentals were very smooth, funky, and soulful. This was a refreshing and positive listen that I'm glad I decided to press play on. Number 3, I have Ransom and Nicholas Craven's Director's Cut 4. So this was Ran and Craven's 4th installment to their famed Director's Cut series. Nicholas Craven once again delivered on the production and supplying Ran with classy, soulful instrumentation. And Ransom, he was on point like a marksman lyrically, but this time he did go into his political and socially conscious bag more so than before. You also had strong guest appearances from King Crooked, Raina Simone, Shay Noor, and Nick Grant. At number 2, I have Skeese's Abolished Uncertainties. So this was a project that had high replay value for me since it dropped. I just love the hunger and the ferocity to which Skeese attacks these instrumentals. From his flows to the songwriting, I was very impressed with this project, especially considering he didn't really stand out to me quite that much as an artist back in 2020. And for number 1 so far of 2023, I have Killer Mike's Michael. Now, to me, this was the best project sonically I had heard all year. I gotta admit, I am a sucker for soulful, traditional Southern rap, and Mike had that in abundance on this album. It just had a very Atlanta and Dungeon Family feel, and I was all for that. To me, it was a nice change in pace from the Run the Jewels aesthetic. I found the guest appearances to be great, and Mike gave us some of his most personal and heartfelt writing to date. So those are 15 projects that left an impression on me so far this year. In the comment section, drop what yours would be.